Hello, everybody, and good morning. Welcome back to my podcast. It's been a few days, and it's been a crazy few days. A lot of crazy shit has happened, and I'm just gonna jump right into it today. No pleasantries. We're skipping right to the juice, to the meat, and because there's something I got to talk about, something that has oddly, unexpectedly, radically altered my daily life, and actually it's because of this podcast. It's most likely. I mean, I can't say for sure because I don't have a lot of information about it. Although it did radically alter my life, but I think it's due to my podcast. And the thing that I'm talking about is that Facebook has inexplicably, permanently, and irrevocably banned me from their site. So imagine that. I'm like one of the bads. I'm like the bad apple. So I'm part of some sort of deep, political underground that's agitating for revolutionary change. Global change, and my views are so dangerous, that they need to be silenced. They need to be silenced by a giant social media platform that wields a huge amount of power. And I'm fully aware, as you probably are as well. I mean, we've all seen that documentary on Netflix, right? What's it called? The Social Dilemma or something like this. I know, on an intellectual level, that Facebook is a bit of a shady corporation. Yeah. I think we can all agree that they've made choices, and that they wield this unimaginable amount of power, and that, and that there's a lot to be critical of. But nevertheless, on the surface, the service that they seem to provide is quite pleasant. Yeah, it's quite pleasant. But that's what we're going to talk about today. And the rule that I'm going to follow for this discussion is that I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I'm going to tell you 100% the truth about my relationship to Facebook, and the effect that this has had on my life. And then we're going to reflect a little bit about what this means, for all of us, for Facebook, for the world we live in, things like that. I have no idea how long this episode is going to be, but by the way, I've decided that every episode will be a full episode now, because I don't really like how the website I'm using organizes I thought to always have like an episode and then a bonus episode, but like an in-between episode, like a 2.5, 3.5 episode. But I don't like how the website that I'm using organizes my episodes. So I'm just going to mark them for convenience. I'm just going to mark them as all full episodes. So some of my full episodes will be an hour. Some of them will be a half an hour. And that's just the way it is. So I hope that, so maybe you'll get lucky. You only have to, listen to this old crazy fool for a half an hour, but maybe it's one of those days you got to go and sit through the entire hour. But also, apropos Facebook ban, thank you for listening. I don't know how you found me. We're going to talk about it in a bit, but I mean, who's going to share this on Facebook, right? Like I'm not, because I'm not on Facebook, and any of my friends, a few have been willing, but it takes a bit of bravery, to share me on Facebook, since you might get permanently, inexplicably, and irrevocably banned from Facebook. So cool. Let's jump in. Let's jump into this conversation, and I want to talk first about my Facebook use. And I want to say right off the bat that, my relationship to Facebook was probably not healthy. Yeah, I was most definitely an addict, I woke up first thing in the morning and I started scrolling. Last thing before I went to sleep, I started scrolling. In fact, it probably explains why it was often hard for me to get to sleep. It's almost a cliche now, but I was staring at that screen up until the moment that I turned it off and rolled over and tried to sleep, and my brain was still moving a mile a minute. And, more often than not, after 15 minutes of tossing and turning, I would just get back onto Facebook and scroll some more. My sleep habits are quite problematic at the moment. And as also on that, as an addict, I'm probably going through withdrawal. I was only kicked off Facebook, 2 days ago? And I'm most likely going through withdrawal. I'm having like weird ass fucking mood swings, you know. At at moments I feel almost euphoric, and at other moments I feel like desperate and terrified and like physically nauseous. So that's fun. That's fun. And but yeah, I was totally, poster card Facebook addict. I started Facebook 25 years ago. I've been on Facebook for a quarter of a century. Yeah, 25 years ago. And in the beginning, I just wanted to keep in touch with a few friends. That was, I didn't really use it very much. I just sort of had my friends. And but over time, I started using it primarily for news. I followed a bunch of my favorite news sites, and this was like during a very special period on the internet where a lot of these big newspapers did not have paywalls, so like you could read New York Times essentially for free. Actually, I think I had a friend's account for New York Times. I think New York Times always had a paywall, but like Atlantic and I mean, Guardian still has no paywall, God bless them. And, Project Syndicate, which is one of my favorites, opinion news organizations, they get like expert opinions on things. A lot of the news tends to be a bit, centrist for my taste. And I mean, the leftist news that I follow was almost never had a paywall, places like Roar Magazine or Jacobin. And yeah, but, I primarily would just read news articles and share news articles and occasionally get into political debates with people. But they were, mostly civil. I mean, I always tried to, not be an asshole. I mean, I think there was one time in 20 years of political discussions on Facebook that I just lost it and, politely suggested that the guy I was talking to should, might be some sort of new species of ostrich that instead of sand prefers, the inside of their own asshole. And that maybe it would serve him, well in his life if he would, extricate his head from said asshole. But generally speaking, even though the people that I would sometimes discuss with were not very nice, were a bit mean, a bit sharp, a bit edgy, might say. I tried to, not that I value civility, I'm all about this whole like, oh, you get this, you hear this all the time that like, oh, we can disagree, but we should do it in a civil way. It's like, yeah, I mean, in a certain context, absolutely. But as a fixed principle, I don't think so. I think that there's plenty of examples when civility is not, the right tactic, So anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, so, political discussions, reading the news, and then more recently, as Facebook has sort of toxicified, has gotten real noisy. I don't know if you've noticed, but in the last 2 or 3 years, Facebook has gotten real noisy. Yeah. There's, I suddenly find myself joining all these groups and, I'm getting bombarded with various advertisements and, and the groups are, I'm joining like philosophy groups and political groups and I'm thinking, oh, this will be a good way to sort of maybe broaden my horizons or hear things that I haven't heard before. And every once in a while, you'll see a post on one of these groups that's like, yeah, okay, that's interesting. But 99% of them are just like bad memes, and memes can be fun, I mean, the right wing loves their fucking memes, and the left is, trying to play catch up, but ultimately the problem with the meme is that none of them are true. A meme, all memes lack nuance, I mean, there might be a meme about memes lacking nuance, and does that one have nuance? I don't know. It's a difficult question, but I mean, memes lack nuance. Yeah. And so, it was a bunch of stupid fucking memes. And, there's all these fucking edgelords out there, especially in leftist groups. They get like these right wingers come in and they do like edgy fucking memes that, just sort of to trigger the leftists. Cause, the right loves to do nothing more than trigger the left, which is of course why Donald Trump was such a successful president from the perspective of the right wing, because the right, they didn't want an actual leader or a president. They just wanted somebody who would troll the fucking left, and that's what Donald Trump does best. Anyway, again, I'm digressing. I mean, today, in my podcast, I'm going to really try not to digress because I want to cover this life shaking event. Yeah. So, okay. That's my Facebook use, but I've been on for more than 25 years. And in addition to, arguing with, politics and reading news and sharing, news, I also, Facebook, it became more than that over time. I mean, 25 years, and there was always just the expectation, the assumption that Facebook would just always be there, I mean, if you had asked me, is it possible to be completely wiped off of Facebook, to have all that content deleted, I would have told you that that's literally not possible, that you wouldn't even be able to do it if you wanted. And I guess I haven't, I heard recently that you can, if you really want Facebook to totally delete you, like you can make that happen. There might be some, hoops you got to jump through to do it. But if you had asked me a few days ago, hey, is it possible to be completely, deleted, scrubbed clean from Facebook? I would say no, absolutely not. The internet is eternal and forever, and there's nothing you can never be. I mean, I have a blog on another website from 30 years ago that's just still there, sitting there, and it's a good blog, but okay. All right. So, but Facebook, was a part of my life. It was like a tumor. I mean, it wasn't physically a part of my physical body, obviously, but it was a weird, like, sort of digital tumor that I grew into, like, digital space, and it was a tumor that I curated, and that I dressed up, real nice, for public consumption. It was like a certain, it was like a tumor mask. It was like me, through a certain lens, me, an idealized, a pseudo idealized version of myself, a strange digital homunculus dressed up to look good for other people, I wanted people to be, impressed, by, my perspicacity or whatever, yeah. Or convinced by my, deep political insights, things like this, yeah. And it was definitely a part of myself. And as a part of myself, it was also sort of a running record of my life. In Facebook, I had 25 years of photos, of memories, of conversations. I have tens of thousands of words of conversations, maybe hundreds of thousands of words of conversations. Sometimes I would daydream about collecting those conversations and maybe trying to publish them, maybe on a blog or maybe even in the real world, maybe like contact a publisher and be like, hey man, here's 20 years of like political conversations on Facebook. Maybe that's something that somebody would be interested in. Probably not, but hey, we're allowed to daydream. Right? So, 25 years, photos, conversations, memories, ideas, opinions, and it was all obliterated in an instant, right? And so, my relationship to Facebook might not be healthy, but for better or worse, I invested a part of myself in Facebook. A part of who I am was this digital homunculus that I created, and Facebook has torn that from me. And I mean, it's not nice. I'm sad and I feel helpless and I'm angry and I'm blown away at how it was done. I mean, okay, clearly this homunculus never really belonged to me. Yeah. I mean, all of that stuff that I posted on Facebook became property of Facebook, right? Not property of Chell Man, the guy who, was a loyal, trusting user of Facebook for 25 years. No, and that's why it can be, obliterated at the whim of the company because it never really belonged to me, even though it was me, it was a part of who Chell is. It was this weird sort of paradoxical part of Chell because while being a part of me, it was also not owned by me. It was a part of me owned by somebody else. And that part has been torn off. And it's left a gaping digital wound and probably some pretty heavy withdrawal symptoms. And yeah. So let's talk about the ban. How the fuck did this happen, right? Well, of course, Facebook didn't tell me. There's been no communication from Facebook why I've been banned. I simply violated community standards. That's all the information I have. I don't know where or how or which community standard I violated. I mean, I definitely wasn't uploading naked photos, so it's probably not that one. But, one of these community standards, was I bullying somebody? I don't think I was bullying somebody, I mean, in fact, I know I wasn't bullying somebody because, it's just not how I use Facebook, but my Facebook, my activity on Facebook has been pretty much constant for 20 years. Yeah. And the only thing that's recently changed is that I've started uploading this podcast. Yeah. Which is content created by myself that I've been sharing on Facebook. Yeah. And so my guess is, even though Facebook, has not told me why, there's no explanation. It was just, I was literally on Facebook scrolling and I got this little pop-up that says your session had ended. Please relog. And when I tried to relog, it says your account has been disabled. If you think that this is an error, visit our help center. So I visited the help center and they said, your account, has been disabled. Fill out this form and we will review the ban. And it also says very clearly, if you do not fill out this form within the next 30 days, your account will be permanently deleted. And I'm like, well, fuck, right? So I filled out the form. Yeah, it was very easy. They needed my name, my birth date, and a copy of my ID. Yeah, which I also thought was a little bit strange, although now, having done some research, it turns out that most people are banned in this way because their name is not the same as their birth name on their birth certificate. Yeah, so by the way, all my German friends who have decided to use other names, because Germans are a bit sensitive about their identity and data online, and they've decided to not use their real names. If Facebook, for whatever reason, figures that out, and I mean, all of that data is just floating out there in this internet, in this digital realm, you will be banned, and you will have to change your name, or maybe the ban will be permanent. So just keep that in mind. It could happen any moment. So I was scrolling through Facebook, a normal day, not doing anything. I was actually setting up a page for my blog. I was trying to figure out if I could somehow connect the blog to the RSS feed so that the page on Facebook would automatically update whenever I made a new podcast. Because podcast is my new favorite thing to do. And yeah, I was just in the middle of that, and I got this notification: you've been logged off. Here's the form to submit. I filled out the form. I uploaded my ID. I clicked submit, and I got another pop up. And the pop up said, I should probably have actually had this pop up ready. Actually, I can let me get it ready. I can get it ready. Hold on. Just talk amongst yourselves. Talk amongst yourselves. What was that SNL skit with oh god, the funny guy? He's like my favorite fucking actor. Yeah, my brain doesn't fucking work anymore. Let's try this one. All right. I got this, I got a pop-up. So I clicked the submit button, please Facebook review the ban, because it's gotta be, I didn't violate any community guidelines. It's gotta be an error. It's gotta be an error. Yeah. And the ban said, and I got a pop-up and it says, we cannot review the decision to disable your account. Your Facebook account was disabled because it did not follow our community standards. This decision can't be reversed. So I can't get Facebook to review their decision to ban me, right? Now, I did some Googling, and this kind of immediate, permanent ban with no warning only happens if you've really severely violated community standards. Like if you were uploading child porn, or if you were, you can go on Facebook and you can post things like kill the fucking police, and they'll give you a 72-hour ban, right? Or they'll disable your ability to write comments for a while, right? But a permanent ban without warning, you must have really done something bad. And I didn't. It's definitely a mistake, right? I mean, the only way it could have been not a mistake is if somebody had hacked my account while I was on it, and I mean, I'm on Facebook all the fucking time because, again, unhealthy addiction, right? Somebody would have hacked my account without me noticing and started uploading really fucking disgusting material. And none of my friends would have noticed because nobody contacted me and said, hey man, you're posting what the fuck, dude? That's not okay. And then Facebook saw that and decided to permanently ban me and didn't think, hey, wow, maybe he was hacked because, after 25 years of use, it was all, totally acceptable with no violations. And then one day you start uploading really disgusting material, and maybe we should contact this guy and be like, hey man, did you do this? Cause this is just a little bit unusual. But no, they just decided to fully ban me, right? But which I think this is unrealistic. I think the most realistic reason why I've been banned is that some algorithm scanned through my podcast that I've been posting, and flagged certain sections of the podcast, like where I talk about QAnon, or where I give QAnon's website where you can read, Q posts, or where I quote the thing from that Proud Boys guy, and I say, hey, this is, in order to, of course, criticize and demonstrate how ridiculous these fucking racist Proud Boys are, but I quoted what he wrote, I even had a trigger warning because the quote is, pretty fucking awful, right? And flagged these certain parts from my podcast, and then sent that to somebody, like a review person, and, just those parts without context, and said, look at what this guy, the algorithm said, hey, check out what this guy's been posting. We think that this is in violation. And the person listened to those clips, those snippets, and said, holy shit, this person is just awful. This person is exactly who Facebook has been banning. I mean, I had an episode where I criticized Facebook for banning groups. I must have, based on those parts from my podcast, I must have been, they must have concluded that I was exactly one of these groups, a crazy racist QAnon supporter, Proud Boy who needed to be banned immediately from Facebook, and did so, without the possibility for appeal. So I get this pop-up, says this decision cannot be reversed. And I'm like, well, fuck, I start to get a little bit of panic here because, I'm fucking addicted to Facebook, and where am I going to get my fucking scrolling fix? What about all those friends? What about all those friends that I have that I only have contact on Facebook? And remains an issue. I mean, I'm working through it, guys. I'm working through it. But, what about all those photos that I only have on Facebook? Those are lost forever. I mean, it was like a record of 25 years of my life just gone in a second. But okay, yeah. So I'm like, well, what can I got it? There's got to be something I can do. So I'm looking like, okay, is there a customer service support line? Is there a help desk? Is there some way I can contact Facebook? Maybe a phone number or an email address, or maybe like a live chat service or anything? And there's not. There's not. If you send an email to support@facebook.com, which used to be an email address, 5 years ago, you'll get a return mail, sub delivery thing, that little notification. The email doesn't exist anymore. It's been disabled. There is literally no way to speak to a human being at Facebook, right? No way, right? So, I mean, let that sink in. You cannot contact a representative of Facebook. There's nothing that you can do. There's no possibility for human contact. If you have a grievance against the company, then you are shit out of luck. If your account, of 25 years, with all of this you in it, is one day banned, and and you're not allowed to appeal, then you're shit out of luck. Then you can't change that. You can't reverse that decision. There's no way that you can say, hey, dear Facebook, I trusted you with a pretty big part of my life, and you made a mistake, whether it was a human error or an algorithm error. You've made a mistake, and could you please, reach out to me or review this mistake, or, maybe give me the opportunity to explain it, or, anything like that. Maybe just, write me, a human could say to me on the phone, hey, listen, there's nothing we can do. We're sorry. This content is just against our community guidelines. And, I would say, hey man, but look, the context, but no, none of that. None of it. There is no way to contact Facebook, right? And I think that's fucking creepy. I think that's super fucking creepy. Because Facebook is actively, in some way, it's actively sort of trying to become inhuman, yeah? Because it's run by algorithms, yeah? Algorithms decide who sees what advertising. Algorithms decide who gets recommended what groups to join or people to friend. Algorithms run the feed, the content that is consumed by the users, and algorithms decide who is in violation of policy and need to be banned. The what kind of ban that person should get. If they banned you because of a false identity thing, and then you upload your ID and your name is fixed, an algorithm will see that, realize it made a mistake, and reverse the decision. But the algorithm doesn't have the ability to, review bans for violations of community standards, because the algorithm's the one that's picked out the violation in the first place, and the algorithm is not sophisticated enough to understand context. It doesn't see the difference between somebody, sarcastically, criticizing and making fun of QAnon conspiracy and somebody actually promoting QAnon conspiracy. It's not able to make that, to distinguish between those two things, So, and the human side of Facebook seems to be, by degrees, shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. 10 years ago, Facebook had a telephone number that you could call, a support line, a help desk, an email address. But those services have been eliminated. 3 years ago, Facebook had a live chat with somebody, on their support team, You had to log into Facebook to use it, so I wouldn't be able to do that. But maybe I could use a different email and create another account, which I'm going to talk about if I hopefully I remember to talk about that. But there was the possibility to do that. That possibility also doesn't exist anymore. If you go to their help desk, they have a few topics that they list as things that they can help you with. But if you need help outside of those topics, you can submit a ticket. But it's probably an algorithm that reviews that ticket. They recently said that they've hired 20,000 people to help them clean up Facebook. But I'm pretty sure those 20,000 people just get sent bits, out of context from the algorithm, and then and then say, oh no, definitely this guy is a racist, proud goy, QAnon conspiracy person who's trying to spread misinformation and needs to be permanently banned from the site. Yeah. So no way to talk to a human. And okay. Let's give Facebook the benefit of the doubt. Okay, Facebook has 2.7 billion users. We've seen very clearly that Facebook wields an immense amount of power. It can change the outcome of elections. It's worth hundreds of billions of dollars. It's itself a massive political entity, right? And when you have 2.7 billion people and you have an algorithm that sort of is whimsically, banning people all the time, to different degrees, of course you're going to have a lot of customer service complaints, right? And how would you possibly ever be able to handle all those fucking customer service complaints? So, and you got to have the algorithm do it, because who's going to police 2.7 billion people to make sure that they're all obeying the community standards? You need to have an algorithm to do that. No amount of human work, or an unbelievably large amount of human work, would be needed to police that, to moderate Facebook without an algorithm. And Facebook is about making money, not about hiring hundreds of thousands of moderators, right? So, okay, yeah. So we give Facebook the benefit of the doubt, right? There's simply too much for a human workforce to do, so they need to automate it. And this is sort of the just the result of being a company that is so large with so many people on it, right? Well, okay, that's a clear explanation. I understand. I can understand then why it is the way that it is. Yeah. It's nevertheless unsatisfying, and it's also problematic precisely because of what Facebook has become in the lives of many of its users. It's not just some convenient, thing that, is sort of jolly and chuckly, even though maybe, if you're using it before you've been permanently and irrevocably banned, you sort of think of it as that way. Like, it's not really a deep part of who I am, it's just a thing that I do on the internet, it's convenient, I like it, it's fun, I don't take it too seriously, but I think clearly, based on my experience, because if you had asked me a few days ago, what's your relationship with Facebook, I probably would have told you, yeah, I'm scrolling way too much, but, it's not like it's not super fucking important to me, I like it and there's lots of useful things, but I could live without it, and I can live without it, but, but, Facebook has this very important, very meaningful impact in the lives of many of its users, many of those 2.7 billion users, and the fact that it can make decisions concerning those users and how those users can participate on that platform without any sort of oversight or without any right to due process or, but the fact that it can sort of by itself unilaterally, just make a decision that would dramatically alter somebody's life, at least on a day-to-day basis for some time, without being in any way accountable for that decision is a big fucking problem, okay, so what can Facebook do? All right, okay, yeah, let's talk a little bit about the repercussions of this ban for me, yeah? And then maybe I'll propose an idea of how this can be, of how we could change this in the future. We'll see. I'll just sort of spitball a bit, right? This is all spitballing, So first off, very present to me right now is how the fuck am I going to share my podcast, right? Because it's funny. When I was permanently banned from Facebook, remember when that happened? When I was permanently banned from Facebook, my first thought was, fuck, I need to post about this on Facebook. And then I realized, fuck, I can't let anybody on Facebook know that I've been permanently banned from Facebook because I've been permanently banned from Facebook. Since then, I have written a letter to the editor at the NY Times. It probably won't be published, but, I did it. And if they don't publish it, I'll send it out to a couple more newspapers. I've also written every single senator on the Senate Judiciary Committee, not because, Facebook's really not that important. It wasn't a big part of my life. It was just, I spent an afternoon writing every senator on the Senate Judiciary Committee, explaining to them my situation. I didn't even request, I didn't even say, and therefore please help me, buddy. I just said, here, look, this is what happened to me. Do with what you will with this. I clicked all the boxes, like, I don't need a response to this email, so who knows if they'll even read it. But yeah. So good. So how am I going to share my fucking podcast? Right? Not to mention all of the other things that I'm interested in life, like all of the little thoughts that I have or articles that I read. I should share this on Facebook. I can't do it. But okay, well, maybe my friends will share my podcast, and some of them have, and fucking more power to them, man. Like, my God, thanks. Sean, Yana, Mom, wow. Sean, Yana, Mom, wow, right? Because you shared my podcast, even though you knew that it might ban you from Facebook forever without the possibility of appeal. And I'm blown away by that. But I've also been, some of my friends have been like, hey man, sorry, like, this is really shitty for you, but I've stopped subscribing to your podcast on Spotify, for example, because, I'm worried that, I'll get flagged for bad content or also receive a ban. People are like, yeah, lots of people have said, I love your podcast, but I'm not willing to share it, because, I don't want to be banned. I mean, it's totally reasonable. I mean, why would you risk it, right? So, and it's a little bit of what world are we living in? Like, okay, there's a little bit of a climate of fear going on here, right? Like, whoa, excuse me, Facebook, like, people are afraid to share the content that I'm creating because they don't want to be banned permanently from this website, Yeah. So also another repercussion, I'm like one of those weird people who don't use Facebook, Like, I've met these weirdos. There's people that I have tried to convince to use Facebook because it's like, dude, it's just so fucking convenient. And they've always said, no, I'm not going to use Facebook. There's this group of like fucking weirdos out there who are like refuse to use Facebook for various principled reasons, and now I'm one of them, except I didn't choose to not be on Facebook. Facebook chose to not have me on it. I'm not one of these weirdos by choice. I didn't choose to be an outsider. I was made to be one, So in the future, whenever anybody that I meet is like, hey, can I get your contact information on Facebook? I have to sort of like, embarrass, ashamedly be like, yeah, well, I'm not on Facebook. And then you'll get that, oh, look from them. And then I get to explain, yeah, but I was on it. And then I got permanently banned for a reason that they wouldn't tell me. And then there was no way to appeal. And did you know, by the way, that you can't contact anybody at Facebook? And this is going to be one of those things that like you think about like 20 years later. Great. Right. And final repercussion, I'm absolutely shocked by how much power I let Facebook have over my life without even knowing it. Whoa. I let a fucking faceless corporation that is not interested in my well-being or any of its users' well-being, is it just wants to make the money, dollar bills, y'all, and avoid major political fucking, confrontation. That's basically Facebook's, operating procedure, like make as much money without like, having to answer for it, to various governments around the world too often, and I gave it to, like I said before, I gave all of this power to, to the, of my, over my life to a company that retained ownership of all of that, so I let part of myself become a thing that was literally owned by a faceless, unapproachable, unaccountable organization, which is fucking terrifying and very creepy, very creepy. So, yeah. So you don't have a right to due process on Facebook. You're a user of Facebook, but there's no you don't enjoy any rights. Facebook, retains the right to deny you service at a whim. Even though Facebook also has a major impact in our lives. It's a way that people stay in contact, make money, plan, share their ideas, thoughts, passions, and none of that is within your control. It can be taken away from you in a second, and without explanation or possibility of appeal. So how did we get here? Why is this the way that it is? I mentioned that they've tended towards automating and giving greater and greater control to algorithms, because it helps their bottom line, presumably. But how did they get here? And I think the answer is it's quite clearly Facebook's business model, right? I mean, look at the story of Facebook is a story of a way to make money, and then a way to avoid controversy. Yeah. So they said those two things being very closely tied together. And let me explain. So first they said, okay, we want to make money. Well, first they said, let's connect people at our university, easy. And that was great. And then they said, we want to make money. And what better way to do that than to sell advertising space on this platform that, millions, tens of millions, later billions of people are using. Yeah. So good. So if you pay us money, we will promote your product or whatever it is that you want us to post to our site. We'll make sure that lots of people see it. And in fact, to make it even better, to make our service to advertisers and companies even better, we're going to write algorithms that will target your message to the people who are more likely to want to consume that thing that you're offering. Yeah. And this was a great fucking idea. Companies were like, oh my God, that's awesome. You know, I get such massive reach with Facebook. And Facebook's like, yeah, motherfucker, give me that money, money, money. And everybody was happy until, you know, fucking Russian fucking intelligence agencies decided, hey, why don't we just pay a bunch of money to Facebook to run a bunch of political advertisements for Donald Trump, targeting exactly those people who might vote for Donald Trump, and, you know, really, you know, making, you know, increasing his digital profile. And it worked. You know, I mean, it's hard to say exactly if how well it, I mean, did that win him the election or not? I mean, it's hard to say, but it most definitely had some kind of impact. And then everybody took a step back and said, whoa, what have we done? Facebook, come here, you know, the Senate Judiciary Committee's got some questions for you, you know, and sure enough, they did. And, you know, and Facebook got a lot of political flack for that. And so Facebook said, okay, we're going to clean up our image. I mean, it's true that because, you know, our business model, you know, allows us targeted kind of advertisement based on the accumulation of mass amount of user data. You know, we've ended up helping to polarize places like the United States and arguably the whole world, because, you know, people end up falling down these rabbit holes into these echo chambers and these bubbles, right? And it's all due to, you know, because political, you know, groups with political agendas will pay us to, you know, get more and more people to target, you know, their political ideas towards certain groups of people, and then we have this polarization, and this is a problem. Facebook said this is a problem. Okay, we agree. So what we're going to do, because we've designed this algorithm, because of our business model, we're gonna and we realize that there are problems. We're gonna we'll do something. Facebook says to the world. What we're going to do is we're going to design another algorithm. And this algorithm is going to better police Facebook. We're going to make sure that we're going to sort of cut down on political disinformation, and we're going to ban people who are, you know, we're going to ban, you know, right and left-wing radicals, with all of this, and these are the steps that we're going to take to make Facebook into a nicer place. And then they did that. They implemented it, and that's probably why I got banned, you know. So they implemented it in such a way that they empowered an algorithm that's incapable of understanding context and nuance to simply, you know, comb through for, you know, problematic things like when I talk about QAnon, and then to make a decision with or without human input about who stays and who goes. You know, these sort of, you know, essentially like sort of a crackdown, like a blanket ban across Facebook, yeah? And this is their solution to a problem that they created, right? So what could be done? What would be an alternative? And I think the obvious alternative is a totally new social media platform. Right, so if I could design a social media platform, if I had the IT skills and the capital investment to do it, I would design a social media platform, and I would make it a pay subscription platform. Yeah, I would maybe have it cost $1 a month, and I would promise users that as more people sign up, that price will go down. If I have 2.7 billion people, I could charge $1 a year for use of this platform and be one of the wealthiest fucking companies in the world, right? So I start with $1 a month, a low fee, and I would just say, listen, on this social media platform, there will be no advertisements. We will not mine your data. We will not collect your data. We will not sell your data. We're not going to make any money doing that. You know, that's not the goal. We're going to take these parts of Facebook, you know, that have, you know, made Facebook such this noisy, uncomfortable space, and we're just going to eliminate them totally from our platform. And therefore, for that, we're going to ask you to pay a small monthly or yearly subscription fee that's really, 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 really small, right? Because there's so many people potentially that's going to use this platform, yeah? And then you cut out the source of the problem. No longer is it possible for, you know, groups that have political agendas to influence opinion by paying money in order to get their advertisements targeted to groups that would be most receptive to those advertisements. That entire thing is eliminated. And it's nevertheless a business model that could potentially make tons of fucking money, right? Because so many fucking people potentially would be willing to use this platform. So that seems like an obvious solution. I mean, the prevailing wisdom for so long has been that you can't charge people for this, that nobody would ever want to pay any fucking money for this because they can get it for free on Facebook. And I think that was a good argument for a long time, until Facebook got so noisy, right? Because now, I mean, I've also recently been looking sort of at my own Facebook use, I've sort of been thinking, fuck man, I'm wasting time here. This is just a huge waste of time. I scroll through bad memes, and groups that are sort of toxicifying, that are becoming more and more toxic, and I see less and less of friends. I see more advertisements. I get, funny videos that I just sort of binge watch as though on YouTube. And I mean, yeah, it's entertaining, but it's also not, it's why, I mean, I have YouTube, why am I doing this on Facebook? And what am I doing here? And yet I found it so difficult to stop using it, and it's not clean and simple like it was before, I mean, I'm golden aging Facebook. I mean, Jesus, how old did I, oh fuck, Facebook, when I was young, Facebook was a totally different beast. So that's excellent. But also true, I mean, when years ago, okay, sure, you would get the occasional ad, Facebook has always been powered by ads, but mostly it was just posts from friends and maybe some news organizations, some news article headlines, and that was it. And now it's become something totally different. It's, it's become a very sort of convoluted and messy space. They try to sort of balance that out with a streamlined sort of user interface, big, nice buttons, simplicity, but the kind of content, it's like content vomit, like all over your fucking face as you scroll down through Facebook. And yet it has become this essential service that's so impactful and meaningful to the lives of so many of its users, right? So, yeah. You can have a fucking Shell book, you pay me fucking $1 a month. It's just your friends posting things, no advertisements, no data mining. Bam, bam, easy peasy, revolutionize the entire fucking internet because everybody's doing what Facebook's doing. So I'm on Instagram now. That's really the, that's what I want to leave you with. And so I'm on Instagram in the end, so, I mean, it's not the same. It's not the same. I don't enjoy it as much. It's really annoying that I can't just post something. I have to make a picture, it's fucking, I got to write something on a piece of paper and then take a picture of that piece of paper if I want to just write something, which seems like a really unnecessary step. I never understood Instagram, though. Now that I've been on it for one day, I can follow all of the same shit that I was following. I can turn it into just as noisy and convoluted and toxic a space. Well, maybe not quite as toxic as Facebook was, and I did. It took me 1 day. So congratulations. And it's also run by Facebook, it's well, great Facebook, you didn't kick me off WhatsApp or Instagram. You just kicked me off of Facebook and Messenger, but you control everything. Anyway, so it's fucking remarkable. I guess the lesson to be learned here is that, don't give Facebook, so much, don't make it so central, don't let this corporation have so much power. They're just not, they haven't really earned our trust, and I understand, again, benefit of the doubt to Facebook. They've waded into a really fucking complicated place and they can't really make a good decision here, They're too big, and they're too committed to a certain kind of business model, and they've opened this can of worms. And every solution that they provide to mitigate the fucking wild, unexpected negative outcomes of this can of worm only increases the worms in the can. Yeah. Okay, our platform is polarizing people. We're going to cut down on polarization, and we're going to get rid of people who are potentially producing content that's aimed at, criticizing QAnon conspiracy, right? Blah, 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 blah. But nevertheless, I would appreciate it if Facebook would hire some more people and at least give us some sort of right to appeal, some sort of due process, some sort of, way to but of course they don't have to. They're a fucking corporation. They don't have to do anything, And, so this was a bit of a ramble. I'm still, it's hard to stay focused when you're going through fucking withdrawals, right? And I think I'm going to actually have to edit this episode. So if you hear any, sort of weird cuts, that's me editing it out, because about halfway through, full disclosure, I totally lost my train of thought and just went and ah for about 2 minutes. And that's, that's not even counting the other places where I just sort of repeated myself. But, it's a little bit of a blick, using a German word, a little bit of a view into my current, psychological state, because, these things are just going over and over again in my head. It's like I've been banned from Facebook. All of those things, 20 plus years of conversations, photos, memories, ideas, opinions gone, obliterated in a second. No way to appeal. Facebook has 22.7 billion people. We don't enjoy any rights. There's no right to appeal. There's no right to oversight. There's no right to explanation. This company has too much power. It's because of their business model. And those thoughts just sort of keep going through my head. Anyway, so hope you enjoyed my podcast. I hope you had a good time. I'm impressed if you made it this far. I'll let you know if my letter to the editor of the New York Times or any of those letters that I wrote to this, Senate Judiciary Committee yield any sort of results. I guess, okay. I also understand that, in a world of injustice, what's happened to me is rather small. I probably should have started the podcast with this disclaimer, because hey, let's recognize my position, right? I am a son of privilege. My family is solidly middle class. I've been blessed to live an extremely interesting life. I have, things have been, remarkably good for me, and I hit this little speed bump of, a part of my life being torn from me. And suddenly it's like, the injustice in the world is so extreme. Facebook treats us like shit. We've given all this power to this shadowy corporation, and maybe, it's just, some privileged white cis dude shocked at the tiniest injustice that would be dealt him, right? And I get it. And to some degree, that's totally valid. And, nevertheless, this is, myself aside, Facebook does wield this power potentially against the 2.7 billion people. And Facebook does objectively have an extreme amount of influence or potential influence in politics and in opinion forming around the world, right? So, my case, while minor, while barely a blip on the radar of injustice, could sort of, be taken as a warning of what Facebook could do en masse if it chose to do so. Yeah, under pressure from, internal pressure for whatever reason, or external pressure. Facebook might now be trying to make its space nicer, more friendly, more centrist, which, we could talk about if that's, what the center is And if the center is really very friendly, because a lot of those centrists, like Ben fucking Shapiro, are basically fucking terrorists. But that's sort of been their aim most recently during this election with this Trump-Biden election, right? But is that guaranteed, right? Like, as I said in that previous episode, what if the external pressure that Facebook bows to in the future is some sort of racist, fascist, tyranny, right? Then, what about that, right? So anyway, it's fun that I, criticized Facebook, banning things and then got banned myself from Facebook. But again, I recognize that I'm sort of complaining from a position of privilege. And I think it's important to recognize, that my, while my criticisms, while this experience has, is saddening, and, for those people who are my friends and family, they probably have a lot of, sympathy and empathy for me, but, and I appreciate that empathy, and I appreciate people who are willing to still like share my Facebook and who have reached out and stuff like that. That's awesome. That's really great. But, as I'll to leave you with, the last thing I want to leave you with is that, some of that empathy might be better spent on the plight of the working class around the world. Whatever clothing you're wearing right now is most likely been produced in a setting, in a sweatshop, by people who have no chance to do anything else and are basically enslaved to a global capitalist system that literally sucks their life out of them and pays them pennies for it, so that they can live in poverty and desperation. And you're wearing that shirt. So, I appreciate your sympathy and your empathy for me. I'll get by. I learned a lesson. I learned that I'm not going to give Facebook this kind of power over me myself. Then that's why I'm not going to create another account under a different email address. This has been a wake-up call. There are some things that I will lose. I will lose some friendships. I'll lose some photos. I'll lose a record of 25 years of my life. And that's sad, But, it's not the fucking end of the world. However, there are people in the world that are struggling every day against forces that are so massive, and we should support those people, So, post some leftist content on Facebook, post my blog on Facebook, post this podcast, post this audio on Facebook, and thank you for listening. I love you all very much. And I can't wait to hear from you in the future. Anyway, so that's it. Goodbye, everybody. Have a good night.